Good afternoon. I see some faces I know. How are you? Some people in here have known me a long time. It's good to be here. And a warm hello to all of those out in Facebook land and cyber land of things I don't understand. But hello to all of you. Just as a starting question, who's heard of Dunbar's number? Anybody in the room, Dunbar's number? Or the rule of 150? Okay, we've got a couple. Okay, for those of us who didn't raise our hands, 150 is the optimal number, according to social scientists, of the number of social relationships that we can maintain as human beings. So when you think about 150, think about the average size of a wedding. It's 150 people. Optimal workplace environment, 150 people. Average church Sunday attendance in mainline denominational churches, 150 on a Sunday. So there is some variation, some up and down in that number, which I think is sort of interesting. Maybe our shyer, introverted types work better with numbers closer to 120. They might only have Facebook friends around 100. And then there are those that would lean the other way of 150. They're more extroverted. There's a theory that says women are able to accommodate more social relationships just by their virtue of their gender, so they might lean more into the 160s, maybe 170, but roughly 150. That's sort of contrary to the number of my Facebook friends. So if you're ever on my Facebook page, just remember that number is very deceptive. Now think about these 150 people in your lives. Think about the 150 people closest to you. Maybe the 5 people that are immediately around you. This would be your friends, your children, cousins, immediate family, right around you. And then out from there, your favorite cousins, your workplace buddies, the people you work out with, your social circles, the people you might go and grab dinner with on the weekend, or go to a movie, grab coffee. Your business association people, your business partners, your colleagues, my ministerial colleagues in the room, around the area. It's about 150 people. And when you think about the 150 people around you, I want you in particular to think about your 150 people and picture their faces, their lives, the things that they like, the things that are important to them. It makes them real people, right? You have that vision in your head? Okay, now hear this. This is from the Gospel according to Matthew. Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your span of life? Why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow and is thrown into the oven. Will he not much more clothe you? And what about this psalm? This is Psalm 139. It should be familiar to most of us. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, and is so high that I cannot attain it. So those 150 people I asked you to consider, we're welcoming some seminarians in the room. Come on in, guys. Hi. Oh, and grown-up pastors too. Oh, hi, Melissa. So I've asked everybody to consider the 150 people in their lives, the Dunbar's number people, the people that social scientists say these are the number of relationships that we as human beings can hold in a healthy way. So think about these 150 people and what scripture might say about how God treats us. And now listen to this. What if I told you that all 150 of those people were gone like that? Gone. You buried them. So in 2015, 158 women were killed by an intimate partner. And somehow that number, 150, becomes less of a statistic that I would toss your way. And believe me, we have tons of statistics. And more of a real person, a real life, a child of God, violently taken from us just here in the state of Texas. This session, money's tight. Will and I were just talking about that. And honestly, I've never been around a session at the Texas legislature where we didn't hear that money was tight. So this is not news, but particularly this session, money is tight. So not every bill can have a zero fiscal note attached to it. And where domestic violence is concerned, I'm going to talk right now about two. One will have a fiscal note because we're going to live in hope, even in our scarcity, that there is an abundance. And then I'll talk about a bill that does not have the fiscal note attached to it. There are a couple of other bills that will be hitting the floor of the Texas legislature that are concerned with domestic violence. Some will be on the Senate side, some will be on the House. So there are still things that are coming through. But we're going to start right now with the good news. We're going to start with the non-fiscal note bill. So Senate Bill 256 by Senator Van Taylor, who's from the Plano area, was introduced on the Senate floor and is now in the Criminal Justice Committee. So again, this is a filed bill that has found its way to the Criminal Justice Committee on the Senate side. This is something that we are looking at. It's a priority. Should not be too challenging, we don't think, to put into practice. Already in Texas, there is in place a provision that allows victims to use an alternate address for their mail. It's a good thing. It's attached to the Attorney General's office. It keeps them in the place where they have found shelter, keeps them safe in that space. This bill would clean up two loopholes in that particular provision. There is a loophole in the voting and tax code that exposes a little bit where they are. It will tighten that up. Also, there is a loophole in allowing law enforcement to access that information, the criteria required to access that information. Senate Bill 256, not a long bill, real easy to pull up, look at, you can read it, it's not hard to make sense of. I encourage you to do that. This would just close those loopholes and create more safety for our victims of domestic violence. Now, the next initiative, it's also good news because we're in the business of good news, I hope. But it does have a price tag attached to it. We are seeking full funding for family violence services in the state of Texas. Last year, over 72,000 people, men, women, and children, used services that are provided by places such as Safe Place in Austin, Houston Area Women's Shelter in Houston, Genesis in Dallas, the places that provide services for victims of domestic violence. Over 72,000 people accessed those services. Now remember the 158 women that I talked about. And now think about this. 39% of service requests in 2016 were turned away. They were turned away not because we couldn't or didn't want to help these people, but because of the lack of funding and resources. Some of the resources are as simple as there was no space for these women, these men, these children that were seeking shelter. I'm sure you can imagine that just to get to a place where you ask for help takes a lot of courage. So 39% of requests being turned away is a frightening statistic. We're seeking to fund in such a way that we would turn away no one. Health and Human Services will ask for approximately $57 million a session to fully fund these core programs. On top of the $57 million that would seek to fund these sorts of core programs, there will be an additional request for $3 million. And this will address ways to innovatively respond to these support requests. There's also an additional $3.5 million requested to work intentionally on prevention and intervention programs. These are the sorts of programs that work with our perpetrators. These are the sorts of programs that began even in schools when we're little, teaching us how to interact with each other in ways that discourage domestic violence in the long run, that encourage communication in healthy ways. 57 million plus an additional 3 million for support, and then an additional 3.5 million for prevention. So those bills have not yet been filed. They will hit the floor soon. And again, as you can hear, they're funding and budget bills. So those will require some prayer, some dedication on our part. 150, Dunbar's number. So let's consider that number one more time. There have been approximately 25 people, and that's probably on the low end, joining us online with Weekly Witness. Approximately 40 joining us live, just in this room, every week. There's an additional group that read up and catch up with us by watching these sorts of Weekly Witnesses on archives later. So without even trying, we're at 100. 100 of us, 100 of our social circle friends, if we want to think of it that way, will access the information that you're receiving today. So what do we do with that information? What do I say to that information as a woman of faith, as a religious professional? Well, what I would say, coming from my Christian background, what I think about is our call to be disciples, to go, to be bearers of the good news. So I invite all of you to go. Go this week, find your 150 people, however you want to find them, and gather support. Be a witness to the good news. Tomorrow is Domestic Violence Awareness at the Capitol. There'll be a large presence of people there that are working on these particular initiatives, both filed and bills to be filed. And there's something as simple as a purple postcard that you can send to your legislator that says, yes, I support full funding. I want to fully fund these sorts of programs. Yes, I support these Senate bills, these House bills as they come through. In these ways, we can be weekly witnesses, in this case for domestic violence.
Any questions in the room? I'm not seeing any online. Where do you get the cards? Is that the question? Yeah. Where do we get the purple cards?
You can get the purple cards as easily as clicking on your website. You'll find them under the Texas Council for Family Violence website. Very easy to access. You can fill one out there. And if not, you can ask for them there.
What is the number of the second bill? The first one was due.
The second bills have not been filed. They are just budget requests, so they have not hit the floor yet. They have not been introduced in either the Senate or the House. They should be forthcoming.
Can you just double check stats and make sure?
Sure.
So more than 72,000 men, women, and children access resources, 39%
That's correct.
And I made a note now. We'll see if we can get that postcard shared on the weekly witness page as well, so you can find it a little easier later. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any online. All right. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.